o'clock. If you join me in pledging the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kenneth Jones,
Here.
Jeff Guard,
Here.
Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
David Gleason.
Here.
It's a quorum of council.
Okay, approval of the regular agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda will stand as submitted. Does councils have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications to declare? Okay, hearing none. Communications by and petitions from visitors. We don't have any guest speakers scheduled for this evening, so are there any audience comments regarding agenda items? You can please just state your name for the record. Thank you. Residents.
I am Sheridan Joyce. I'm at 1001 Pipe Street. All I just wanted to say was that I think the price that has been come up with so far on this negotiation between me and the city is a little bit high. And I just kind of wanted to, I don't know, I guess go through kind of the basics of what we've come to. I mean, it's all in the packet, obviously, but so they want,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think maybe perhaps this is on the agenda, maybe more appropriate to bring him forward and we could discuss it if he's got some questions or input.
I'm almost done.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can let him present his audience comments, and then if council wants to ask questions or something, then we.
Well,
do
if
that
he's
as well.
not happy with it, then we're not, why vote?
Well, I'm not completely unhappy with it, but you guys do have the option to suggest a change in this process instead of just straight approving it. So basically my argument is that by the time I pay all these survey fees and everything else the city has come up with for this, it costs $2.66 a square foot. And if anybody's seen the lot, you know that it's not exactly a great piece of land. And then, I mean, another way to put that is 266 equates to $116,000 an acre for that. So, I mean, you've seen what land sells for around here for similar stuff. Harville's lots are kind of similar terrain. You get 3 times as much for the same price. So I'm just kind of a little bit confused how the valuation got so high, and I just don't think it's completely fair. And I didn't really get to negotiate that very much as far as I could tell with any of staff. So that's just all I have to say for that. I mean, otherwise you can approve it and how it is, and we'll see what happens, but I'd like it to be changed.
Okay, thank you. Is there other public comments, audience comments regarding agenda items? Okay, seeing none. Chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions, CCMC board. Do you have any report for today, or?
I do. Greg asked me to speak.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you could just state your name for the affiliation for the record, appreciate it. Okay, into the microphone, please. We have councilmen online, so they can't hear.
Okay,
Thanks.
sorry. My name's Kelly Kondraski. I'm the CNO, and I'm the infection preventionist at Cordova Community Medical Center. Sorry, a little nervous because I don't do public speaking. But he wanted me to come and speak to you about the coronavirus. I did print out a bunch of literature from the CDC so that if you guys would like them, they're right here. Basically, coronavirus was a global emergency declared by the World Health Organization on the 30th of January. And on the 31st, I decided that we needed to do something about it. So I called our committee together and said we need to get an action plan together, which we have. And then I said, okay, well, let's get the city involved. And so we called more meetings together on the 6th of February, and we have action plans together, have everybody in our facility is fit tested, which is an N95 respirator. We went down, checked all of our PPE, which is personal protection equipment, to make sure that we have enough for all of the staff, and we have a large, abundant amount in case of an emergency like this were to arise. This is much bigger than a little hospital, obviously. It's worldwide. The spread of it to Cordova is very small chance, but it's not no chance. There is a chance that we could get it, so we have to be prepared. And so between Heather Brandon, which is the emergency, I gotta put my glasses on, but she is management coordinator, the people at Alanka came, and myself, we've all discussed what we would do. But the number one thing, which I put in here, is if you're sick, stay home. There is so many respiratory illnesses out. Coronavirus is probably not gonna take over Cordova. The flu would take it over first. It's 2% death rate, where the flu is a ridiculous, I couldn't give you the statistics, but death rate. So we need to be prepared, not panicked. And I think there are some people that are panicked. I had probably 50 emails yesterday of panicked people. So that's why I'm here today, that we need to just be prepared and not panicked about it. And we are prepared. But if you have symptoms, flu-like symptoms, anything like that, call ahead. Call the hospital, let us know. Mask up, wash your hands. I mean, it's all in here. Go to the CDC website, cdc.gov. Educate yourselves. That's your best bet. But know that we are prepared in case somebody were to come. Right now, there is, I think, they're saying 15 cases, but there's also another 14 cases off of the Princess boat that are quarantined in California. So that's not a lot. That's not a lot of cases in the U.S., but it could potentially come here. You know, people travel.
Yeah, we do have some international cruise ships coming to Cordova this year, and we have Hello Skiing and other businesses that bring a lot of international travelers in. So did I hear you understand correctly that's roughly equivalent to the risk of a common flu, or?
No, I'm saying that you have a higher risk to get the common flu.
Okay, a higher risk to
We
catch
have
it.
influenza A in Cordova, and 2 days ago, we tested a positive B. So, I mean,
Okay.
the influenza is, you have a much greater risk of getting that, and a much greater risk of death with the influenza. So I suggest
Oh,
that.
now I feel better.
Okay,
And, you know, every time somebody gets a sniffle or something like that, you know, everybody's gonna think, oh my gosh, I have corona. But you know what? It is respiratory season right now. Respiratory etiquette. Wash your hands, cover your mouth. I'm not saying everybody run out and grab a mask, but I'm saying do, you know, normal precautions. Wash your
Okay.
hands, cover your mouth, cover.
and you mentioned the cdc.gov is one resource. Where can people get information locally?
Locally, well, I gave information to Heather to put out. We've put
Okay.
stuff on our Facebook website. I have emailed several people, and
Okay.
if you want, I can send an email that you guys can all distribute if you'd like.
So the website or Facebook is CCMC Facebook website?
Yep.
Okay, great. Any questions? Councilman Jones?
Well, yeah. One of the things that I was reading today, I just pulled it up really quick, is the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention released clinical details on the first 72,314 patients diagnosed with COVID-19, and it killed 2.3%, which is what you're saying, around 2% of its patients that were diagnosed. But that is actually 23 times deadlier than the seasonal flu.
What's the flu rate at now?
23, it's less than 0.1% of death from the flu. You're more likely to get the flu, but you're a lot less likely to die from the flu. So
I heard
that's-
that, and I'd have to, I don't have statistics and
Yeah.
numbers because I didn't get the flu numbers, but I think I talked to somebody today, and I thought that was a much larger percent today. But I'm not going to
it
give
might
numbers.
it might
because-
depend on the type of
Yeah,
influenza too. So I just
the influenza death toll right now is pretty high.
yeah. Okay.
2%, that's pretty low.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate that update. I know there's, as you said, there's been a lot of community questions about risks and risk for Cordova. And thanks again for those resources. People can get information. Do we have a report from school board?
The board has been focusing on policies and strategic plan and making some headway in updating our policies and adding in policies that we feel like are missing, which has been great, and a lot of good community conversation around those, which is always really helpful for us. Pete Hefner and Deborah Adams took 2 students to the Legislative Fly-In and Youth Leadership Institute a couple of weeks ago. You may have seen our students in the Juneau Empire speaking about the impact of the loss of the ferry system to Cordova. They were outstanding ambassadors, and I've had a number of people tell me specifically what a great job they did. And they just really represented our district well. And very grateful to the adults who tag along and make sure they're fed and well rested and all of that. And so then other board members will be preparing to go to the second legislative fly-in at the end of March, beginning of April, and looking at a couple of specific bills and points of advocacy. Obviously, the ferry system is one. School bond debt reimbursement is a huge one. And there's a big bill, SB 6, which addresses a number of things, but in particular, reading comprehension improvements and pre-kindergarten. And so we're keeping a close eye on that because those are both the pieces in that legislation would have some impacts from Cordova. Some of them would be farther out. We would be sort of at the end of the run for adding in pre-K because our school outcomes are so good right now that we're not a priority. And then the issues around reading interventions as well that have the potential to bring some additional resources to our district. We would love to see those scores improve. And so any access to resources that would help us would be good. I don't know that this bill is the vehicle. There's still a lot of debate, but that's one we're in particular keeping an eye on.
Thank you. Any questions, council?
And the basketball games are home this weekend.
Fantastic. That's homecoming or last weekend?
Not this weekend. It might be the next weekend.
I think homecoming is the last.
The last of the 3 games, right? So it's this weekend and then 2 more weekends home.
Okay.
So around March 6th, I think, is homecoming.
Who are they playing this weekend?
Yeah, you'd have
Nenana?
to ask me that. Is it Glen Allen?
I think it's Nenana.
Nenana.
We lost our student council rep to answer.
I know, right? They're usually handling those questions.
Just
I just know I'm scoring a game.
just as a note, the Saturday games are early.
Early, they are.
They're like 9 a.m.
9 and 10:30, I believe. Yep,
Yeah, you have to catch the
So they can
flights.
catch up.
right, because they're leaving on Saturday to get home.
Oh, right on.
Yep.
So-
But as you point out, there's 2 more home game weekends, which is a nice run for us. And the junior high volleyball teams did very, very well at their tournament in Glen Allen last weekend as well. So a lot of good successes. And our Nose Bowl team is out competing as we speak, I believe.
So Barb, I know I think there was like $150,000 differential between ferry travel and airfare. And the school district did a lot of early and heavy fundraising and has continued. I know a lot of organizations and individuals in the community have stepped up, but I'm just curious, do you know roughly where?
I think, don't quote me, but the last I heard, through our direct fundraising, our GoFundMe, we'd raised about $50,000. I believe that we've found some additional resources within our budget, but there is still going to be outstanding bills to pay and perhaps a draw on our fund balance to cover it.
Okay, well, thank you. I know
you.
council appreciates school district's efforts in that regard, so.
Thank you.
Okay, we may have lost our student council rep. We can come back to that if we need to.
So William's not the rep anymore.
Oh, he's not, okay.
It's Maya Russin, and she's traveling with Noseball.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you for that update. He was here in the audience, so. So that's Maya Russin.
Maya?
Yes, Maya Russin.
Thank you. So she has an excused absence. So council, we have 3 items on the consent calendar. Did council want to remove any of those out separately? Okay, hearing not, roll call vote, please.
Melina Meyer?
Yes.
Ann Schaefer?
Yes.
David Gleason?
Yes.
Ken Jones?
Yes.
David Allison?
Yes.
Jeff Guard? Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Okay,
Move to approve the minutes of 2/05/2020 regular council meeting.
Second?
any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as submitted. We don't have bids for consideration this evening. So I included I will say hastily written mayor's report to try to catch the high points. But I also got an update from lobbyist John Bitney, and I put together some notes to share. So you may have seen that the House put just over $18 million into the Alaska Marine Highway System budget, and we'll see that goes to the Senate. But now the challenge is going to be getting the vessels repaired quickly enough at Ketchikan to put them in service as soon as possible. I did want to acknowledge Senator Stedman in a conference with DOT and colleagues last week, recognized that Cordova is a big hole in the system that has to be fixed. And so we appreciate his support as the Senate Finance Co-Chair and Senator Bishop's as well. Lobbyist Bitney was briefed the governor's office on the harbor funding in the governor's budget for Cordova. So the Office of Management and Budget just explaining what those are for and the goals there. I had a chance to watch the governor's press release today regarding the Alaska Marine Highway System and the newly formed Committee for Alaska Marine Highway Reshaping. And that includes former Admiral Tom Barrett of a public seat, John Torgerson, who's been to Cordova before and was a former special transportation rep as a public member. There is Juanetta Ayers, who is our former Economic Development District Director here in Prince William Sound, as a member of the public. Lee Ryan for Aviation, Ben Goldrich for Labor, Robert Venables from the Marine Transportation Advisory Board, Tony Johansson for Roads and Highways, Senator Burt Stedman, and Representative Louise Stutz. So those are on the governor's new committee, and I just mentioned their names for the record because those are our points of contact there. And that's a fairly respected and storied group. So I also wanted to mention that Senator Murkowski gave her address to the state legislature this last week, and she reminded that in Alaska, highways includes a marine highway, and it's really just that simple. So the administration is also currently assessing ways to improve the Prince William Sound ferry service, and I just want to applaud the efforts, especially of Robin Irving, a former employee of the Marine Highway System here in Cordova, and Kathy Renfelt for their efforts, and especially Robin Irving putting together a really good package that had a pretty sharp improvement in service to the Sound and a lot more sailings at really very little cost. In fact, probably a revenue positive for the system. So I just appreciate the effort she put into getting those into the Marine Highway System. Also, I've been working with the Fisheries Development Committee on a couple of letters to Department of Fish and Game ahead of the March statewide king and tanner crab agenda, basically just supporting the Cordova proposals that are in that agenda, and also asking for the department's advocacy for a regulation change that would essentially allow Northern and Hinchinbrook districts for commissioners' permits, just like the Eastern and Western districts. And they seem somewhat positive for that change. It just depends, just a matter of when and where that would happen. Also, as I mentioned in my report, letter supporting hatcheries and science-based management. It's basically going to reflect the resolution that council already approved back in 2018 and just lists the benefits of the hatchery system to the communities that have them and the state at large. And finally, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. next week. I do sit on the Federal Advisory Committee for the Department of Energy, but I'll also have a chance to meet with our full congressional delegation staff and discuss not only energy issues, but also transportation and fisheries. And then finally, I just mentioned that Cordova Electric will be hosting an Electrify Alaska conference the last week of April. And Monday, April 27th, that'll be open to the community. Really, it's a lot of communities in Southeast Alaska that have real high adoption rates of electric vehicles and electric home heating systems that use new technologies and are more efficient. Just wanted to showcase those and some of the things happening in electric boat and aviation transportation. And of course, hosting a conference of 100 to 120 people that time of year is a good little economic boost for the community. So is there any questions on any items, council? Okay, hearing none. Manager's report.
So the manager's report is in written form, just to go over the marine highway system, which Clay has just pretty much articulated. They're really working hard on a schedule that will add service to Cordova. Should have it published at the end of this month, which means next week. It probably means then 2 weeks later, because that's just what happens. But we'll keep an eye on that, and as soon as it's published, we'll send that out to everyone so that you have that and you can share it with your constituents and others. I want to really shout out a kudos to Kathy Renfeld and the Chamber of Commerce crew that put together a pretty amazing state rally here last week, rally for the ferry, and it was very well attended, and I think was a real positive expression of our interest in making sure we have good ferry service. The next 4 items on my written report are all trying to get things off the pending agenda pile, things that you have all asked about. We're getting competitive bids now on all of our insurance plans, from liability to health insurance and other things. Those will be coming in, and we'll be really looking at cost effectiveness and the quality of the plans. Investments has been a concern of yours, and we're starting to put out the word that we're looking for bids and quotes on how others might manage our resources and our funds. Burn pile refuse, Sam prepared a memo on the burn pile. It is not going away. There'll be some opportunities to move it based on the new Prince William Sound Science Center and its location and the impact of the burn pile on activities that are planned in Hippie Cove. So we'll have a report on that, but just to reassure everyone, we still have a burn pile, just a question of where it will be. And then there was some question about the expense that we had incurred last year on our attorney fees. And I did some research on that, and a lot of it was on employee issues that required legal guidance for the city, and some other transactions. But from this moment on now, everyone who works here in City Hall is coming to me first before they engage the attorney, so we can have a conversation about the need and why, and the scope of how we'll approach our attorney. Enterprise funds can go direct, but they're billed directly, so it doesn't come out of the general fund dollars. So that is it. And the only thing that I would like some guidance on is we've talked about exploring other legal counsel. I don't think we're going to save dollars as much as I think my understanding is that you were concerned about the quality perhaps of our legal counsel. And I just wanted to get a little better sense of that, because I would like to have some parameters and understanding of what the issues are. And so that when I go out and look for other counsel, if we choose to go down that route, that I'm getting the right people on board. So that's it for my report. Oh, and really, really good news. I've got a hot prospect for a finance director. So interview in person here in Cordova in 2 weeks. So very excited about that possibility, as is Dean. So he will be on the ground with me interviewing, and we'll hopefully have an opportunity for some of you guys to meet. He'll be here over the weekend of the 7th. So
Great.
that's it.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Councilman Allison.
Not necessarily a question, but on this attorney situation, I think it's probably best if we put that on an executive session for our next meeting, maybe,
Okay.
to discuss that there. I don't.
That
There's a lot of
would be fine.
reasons I would like
Yeah.
to go out for, not necessarily guaranteed different attorneys, but get some options.
Sure.
I've been a part of council off and on for 30 years, and and I just don't think we've been getting good service from him, so.
Okay, yeah, so we can definitely add that. I just wanted some guidance and happy to do that in executive session.
Okay, yes, Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I get a little bit of leeway to discuss some of the pending agenda items, because at pending agenda, you really can't discuss them, and some of them are staff-driven and need answers from her. I'm wondering if I could bring a couple of those up and have a discussion.
Actually, I was going to, since we have a light agenda tonight, I had met with Helen earlier, and we went through every one of those line by line. I think a lot of them can maybe be combined or cut with it. Can we do that? Just go through each?
That was my intention.
Okay, perfect, yeah, I'm with you. And I appreciate you kind of made that comment earlier. And so there are a lot of legacy things there, so.
Yeah, and I think there's some that she could really strike off with just a discussion right here.
Yeah, I agree.
was thinking.
Yeah.
So if the rest of the council doesn't mind,
Would you like to do that now?
Now or instead of pending
Well-
agenda?
that pending agenda is really not the time to discuss things. It's meant for pending agenda. Now we've kind of got a open, we can discuss things. It depends to the manager.
Any objection, council? Is there any questions for the manager?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
Councilman Baylor.
So if you all would, page 62. And number 10 there, I think that was brought up. I don't know how it really got on. I think it was a suggestion from another councilman, but she has a spending authority of $25,000. It's in her budget. Unless somebody really has a heartache with that, why do we need an agenda item on it?
Councilman Schaefer?
I don't care if we take this off the agenda. It came up because former Councilman James Burton suggested it in an email because the price had been raised, I think.
That's correct.
During the construction of
Okay.
the Cordova Center. And so there was a question of whether we wanted that reduced, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, I personally have no objection to it being 25,000,
Yeah, I have the same thoughts as,
but that's the context.
Is there any objection to removing that? So it's right now, it's a $25,000 budgeted expense, and there's other parameters. There's a city purchasing policy, so there's checks and balances on managers spending in addition to just that amount. Councilman Jones?
Well, I think I was the second on this with Burton, and this kind of came because we were thinking get it done before we hired somebody new so that there wasn't any heartache over there being a change after we hired a new manager. And it kind of was one of those things that just kept getting pushed to the side. Now
Yeah.
it might seem as if we were trying to downgrade Helen's authority, which was not what we were attempting to do at all. It was just trying to bring it back down to where it was before the city center project. We did have some issues with previous managers doing some things in that 20 to 25,000 range without even coming to us. Now, it's not you, but that was where the heartburn came from, was what was happening in the past.
Okay.
And I would still like to see us take this up, but if the rest of you guys don't have will for it, then that's fine.
So I'll tell you what, Council. Councilman Gleason.
I just have a question. What was it before? What was the amount before the city center was built?
I think it was
I
10.
think it was 10.
I think it was 10 as well. I was
Yeah.
going to say 10, so.
Is that enough for you? I mean, is that?
The reality is that I think most things of any size come before this body, so I don't have an issue with that. I'm trying to think of something that might come up if we had to write a $10,000 check. The question would be, would we have to bring it to this body for approval? We meet every 2 weeks. One would assume if we had an invoice for $20,000 or something like that. And those invoices will tend to be things that are services that are provided to council that we've already, to the city that we've already agreed through budgeting process to pay for. So one other approach to take, I'm assuming we could look at a two-signature authority if a check is, if a payment is over 10 grand, let's say, it requires two signatures without council approval. I'm just trying to anticipate, which I can't at the moment, what, between council meetings, if a bill came up, what would I do? Would I have to wait for council to approve something? Like purchasing a piece of equipment. Like we're buying something, there's something in here for $26,000. You're going to approve the purchase. That means you've approved the expenditure, but I'm trying to anticipate. I don't know.
Councilman Jones?
Yeah, so maybe I misunderstood this, but the way I understood it is if we've approved it in the budget, you have the authority to spend it, that this is for anything outside of the budget.
Oh.
And so
okay.
one instance in recent history is a previous manager gave out $23,000 worth of bonuses without even asking us.
Oh, right, yeah.
And another, there was a couple different things that happened over the course of, a few years. And there was some spending on this building to finish it that wasn't included in the budget, but then it still got spent. And there was some heartburn over, well, how come you spend that money? Where's the accounting for that? It wasn't budgeted. Why'd you spend it? And it was, in the 20 to 25 range. So that was kind of the heartburn over why this was brought up in the first place.
Okay.
And that's my understanding of it was, if we say, okay, you can spend $100,000 on, road equipment, you can spend $100,000 on road equipment, but you can't spend 125.
Right.
So I'm not hearing any objection. Is there any objection to taking that one item off the pending agenda? Okay, then council, I am gonna, I do want to keep the rest of that under the pending agenda item. I think we can discuss those there. Mostly because we have action items on here and we have the public here to participate in those, and I think it would be respectful to.
Were you saying any objection to taking that off?
To just item 10, to removing that from the pending agenda?
Yeah, I would object.
Okay, you would? Okay. We can take that up again when we get there, I guess.
Okay.
So we're leaving it.
Okay, so the next was the city clerk's report. Did you have a report, Tina?
There's a written report that Susan
Okay.
did.
Sorry.
I don't really have anything to add. I've just been working on assessment notices.
Okay.
Getting ready to get those out.
And just for the record, Susan did, I think y'all got the email that she had a family event that she unexpectedly had to go back for, so she included her written report.
Yeah, she should be back Monday.
Okay. So I'll revert to my mayor's report for just a minute. I guess that would be the appropriate place to just remind council to get me your clerk's evaluations. I frankly won't be able to process them before I get back from DC next Friday, but that's a hard stop. And so Tina emailed those out there in electronic form for you. Or you can just, what a lot of councilmen do is they literally just go item 1 through 14, put down their score, and then any comments on which item, which number those comments are on, you can email me a summary like that, and I'll compile those again and then get them back to you so you have a chance to review those and the previous evaluations and the contract before the evaluation process in March. So just a reminder.
Is there a deadline?
Yeah, I'm saying 28th of February, I need those, my inbox, so next Friday. And then I also wanted to mention that the Alaska Economic Trends that's published monthly, they featured Cordova, the fishing community in there. And Neil Fried is a state economist, has been for a long time, and watches economic trends. And the summary is that Cordova has been bucking the state trend. Our population's growing, our population's getting younger, our economy's growing, our average income's growing. And then the summary at the very last paragraph is loss of ferry service a blow to 2020. And we are going to have to wait and see the impacts, negative impacts that'll have on the economy. So I just wanted to mention that was published, and it's in the economic trends.
I do have an electronic copy of that. I'll make sure all of you have a copy. I thought I might have sent it, but I will make sure it goes out again.
I wonder if that economic growth correlated with the expanded good ferry service that we had for a few years.
It absolutely did, by plan. Okay, we have correspondence, and is there any council comments
Mr.
or
Mayor,
discussion? Councilman Gleason.
I'd just like to ask the city manager to make the agency review packet in its entirety available to the public on Skip Jensen's proposed
Okay,
oyster farm, including the maps and the whole plan.
okay.
So we can just put that in the next packet, and then it'll be public. Councilman Jones.
Yeah, I would just say with any, even the one in Windy Bay, not just specifically
Both of them.
Skips, I would say any lease that comes up should be, public, not just one
Okay.
piece of paper,
We can post that to the website too, so, yep.
Okay, Councilman Baylor.
Is this something, a topic that is going to get discussed at any time or any way in council, or is this just giving us some information?
This is an agency review, and my understanding is that's a first step in the process, and then it'll be followed by a public review. And I'm not sure when and if the city as a governing body gets to comment, because I know on land disposals and things outside of city limits and outside of incorporated boundaries, we get notifications from other agencies, so that's a good question.
Yeah.
I asked Karen, and she said she would find out for me tomorrow if we could make a statement as a council.
Okay. All right, any other questions or discussion on correspondence items? Okay, hearing none, ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Baylor.
I move Resolution 02-20-06, a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, supporting proposal to be considered at the statewide King and Tanner Crab Board of Fish meeting in Anchorage, March 8th through 11th, 2020.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Would you like to discuss your motion? Councilman?
I support it.
Okay, Councilman Gleason.
That's really well written, and Susan did a really good job on this.
Okay, further discussion, council?
Yeah.
Yes, Councilman Jones.
Yeah, I support this, obviously, and I'm glad to see that the city is taking a more active role in our fisheries politics, since it is the mainstay of our community. So I will be supporting this, and good job to those who crafted the resolution.
I'll just mention also that this is for the March 8th through 11th Board of Fish meeting, and there's still time to submit public comments by February 21st. That's why I'll be submitting the hatchery letter and personal support for these proposals as well. And that's available on the Alaska Department of Fish and Game's website, and you can click and submit comments. You can type them right into the record right there online. So further discussion on this resolution? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next item is Resolution 02-20-07. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing City Manager Helen Howarth as a signatory for the joint agreement as required by the United States Economic Development Administration grant application.
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and second. Would you like to discuss the motion, Councilman Bailey?
I support it.
Councilman Schaefer?
I also support it. It puts the financial burden onto the Science Center. Having the city as a partner on this project is also part of our strategic plan of fostering partnerships in the community, and this will be a big boon to the city, so I think I support it.
Discussion, council? Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I'll also be in support of this. I think it's a no-brainer. Anything we can do to get a grant and bring outside dollars into our community to bounce around in our economy is a great thing. So, and the Science Center does a lot of good in our community and brings a lot of money to town, provides a lot of jobs. Definitely something I would support.
Further discussion, council? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is Resolution 02-20-08. This is a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with the Construction Machinery Industrial for the purpose of purchasing an emergency backup portable generator for the City of Cordova.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Schaefer, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, I'm in support of it. Using the same generator that we already use and are familiar with makes sense in terms of, in an emergency, having the training and the knowledge to use it. So that makes sense, and I'll support it.
Councilman Jones?
Yep.
Further discussion, council? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 02-20-09 is a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to enter into a 10-year lease with Cordova Power Sports, LLC, of an unsurveyed portion of property within Copper River and Northwest Company, Terminal Ground B, which is approximately 75 feet by 200 feet, which includes an option to purchase.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councilman Schaefer?
Well, I guess I have questions because the Sheridan Joyce expressed some concerns with the price of the property. And so I just was wondering how it comes, if it's, I don't know, if the negotiations aren't done yet, or?
You have a question
comes
for
to
staff
us?
through the city manager or to the
Yeah,
city manager?
I'm going to ask Sam to come up
With
and
the
speak to
process.
this.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we do a contract like this, so it's gone through P&Z, it's gone through you guys, we've gone through all that, and now we're here. We have a process of evaluating the land price, and there's a couple options. We could hire an appraiser, which would be at the expense of the purchaser, as it is written in code. Or in the past, in order to save time and save money, we've used, and you might need to help me with the word, but we take the assessed value and we compare it to the properties around it, and then we calculate a price per square foot, and then we use the assessors that brings it to the state. Oh, a multiplication factor. Yeah, it's the state assessor comes up with his multiplier that makes us equal with the state. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at describing that.
Full value, yeah.
Yes, full value
Brings it up to full
determination.
value, yeah.
Thank you. And so that's how we develop that. So we will compare with property around it, not just that piece of property. We have done that numerous times. It's very difficult to get a commercial appraiser here, and it costs a lot of money, and it typically takes a long time. So that's how we did that. And that's how we've always brought it forward. As Sheridan said, you all are the deciding factor. This is what we're bringing forward as the price, and those are our ways of doing it.
I'll just mention for council's benefit too, and I know you're out of town, but the staff gave a pretty detailed, like a half-hour, 45-minute presentation and slideshow on how the actual properties they compared, and pointed out things like if it's a very large tract, the price per square foot is much lower than if it's a small tract, and then there's all kinds of factors like highway frontage, water frontage, so forth. zoning and everything that all factor in, but
Okay, yeah, I'm still
So,
catching up.
yeah, exactly, and I recognize that, so, and no, it's a good question, though.
Cool, okay,
and,
thank
but,
you. I'll look for that.
But I just wanted to applaud staff because that was a very comprehensive presentation. Additional questions, council? Councilman Gleason, then Baylor?
I was just going to say something to Sheridan, if that's all right.
It's kind of a council discussion
Oh.
without.
Okay, I'll make it just a
engaging
basic
public.
comment.
That's probably a safe bet.
I have like a 7,000 square foot lot that my house sits on that's worth about 30 grand. So while I understand the heartburn a little bit there, I feel like this is very fair. So I'm in favor of how this sits right now.
Okay. Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I would actually like to offer a motion,
An amendment?
amendment, thank you. All of a sudden, just lost myself there. On item number 6, if you got that, what I would offer is purchase price is reduced by all rent paid for the first 3 years. Rent paid after 3 years does not go towards the purchase price. That would be my amendment, and I'll tell you my reasons if we get a second.
What page you on, Tom?
Where are you on?
38.
I'm sorry, page 38.
Page 38, and then under background, under background information, item 6, purchase price is reduced by all rent paid for the first, and then it would be 3 instead of 4 years.
Correct.
And then the other change, I'm sorry, Councilman Baylor, rent paid after 3 years does not go towards purchase price. So we have a
I'll second that
motion for an amendment and a second.
discussion.
Discussion, Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I think this is what we afforded Rob Brown on his purchase price. And I think we've come up with this new format, and I think we've got a good contract. And I'd like to see us stay consistent with all purchases. And I think 3 years of basically an interest-free loan is what this is. Your loan your payments go right towards the principal. I think 3 years is adequate enough. I think the length of term for substantial completion can vary depending on the job site, and I think staff should have input in that, and we can agree. But I think the actual dollars going to, I think after 3 years, that's enough to usually get most projects up and running, and I think we just talked about having to raise taxes and making money. I mean, you're basically taking money out of the taxpayers' rolls. We have to make up for that. I think 3 years is pretty generous, so that's why I went with that. Rob Brown, he's under there, and I think moving forward, I would recommend that all land sales have a maximum of 3 years free rent, or however you want to say that. So that was my thought. I thought 4 years was kind of pushing it.
But you're still saying substantial completions, 4 years.
I would like to lead to substantial completion up to the recommendation of Planning and Zoning Commission and staff, because those can vary. But I think giving 3 years of tax-free money, interest-free money, no closing cost, I think that's a heck of a deal. And, what are you going to do when the next person comes forward with a $100,000 piece of property and they want 5 years or 6 years? And they go, well, you gave this person this and this. I'd like to see us just be consistent with what we give away of the city's money. So that was my thought.
Okay, so it just modifies the application. Councilman Gleason? Do you want to speak to your second?
Yeah, I guess if that's like normal, 3 years, is that normal, or are we changing it to 3 years?
Sam, can you speak to that? I don't know that we have a real normal.
We don't have a normal. Yeah, I guess I would say that. Rob Brown's was 3 years. As with many documents in planning, they are fluid, and we are working through the kinks of these options with lease to purchase. We certainly can make a policy how you want to move forward, but it is not unheard of. I haven't been doing lease with option to purchase, so I can't remember what Rome Hills was. I mean, I'd be willing to do some research if we needed it, but I think in general, we're not giving them 15 years of rent payments towards, or 10 years of rent payments. Usually the substantial completion timeframe is either associated with the rent going towards the purchase price, or there's a cutoff date that you can have. So you can have how much lease payments go to purchase price, which doesn't have to be the same as the substantial completion. And in this, the way this, if this amendment was made, the substantial completion would still be 4 years as it is in the contract right now. But the lease with option, the lease payments would, he would have to purchase within 3 years to apply the lease payments.
I got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It's it's,
Actually, I'm sorry.
Councilman Jones, then Baylor.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, I'm
Council-
done.
Okay, Councilman.
I guess I wouldn't really be in favor of lowering it to 3 years because this lot needs substantially more dirt work than, say, Rob Brown's lot. You know, we gave him 3 years, but it was a buildable lot. You know, it's going to take a year of dirt work at least. You're not going to be able to dig into that hillside until May, the earliest, and you know, then you got to have settling time before you can pour concrete. I mean, you know all about that. So I think having it be an extra year as compared to Rob's makes sense, just because it's going to take an extra year's worth of work to get the project done. And I think making the accommodation of that isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, we're trying to support growing business and growing our tax base, and I think that anything we can do to get businesses opened and collecting sales tax for the city is something we should be looking at. And I think this is a good way to do that.
Further discussion, council?
I have one quick question.
Councilman Garden.
If we did the applying of rents or lease payments for the first 3 years, for them to make purchase by, but then we didn't have substantial completion requirements for the 4th or the 5th year or whatever further down the line, then do we have any guarantees that what we've been told is going to happen on properties, and I'm not saying this one, but properties that we get rid of in the future, that's what's going to end up happening with them, or
if,
would we just be giving up any rights to have any say as to what was going on there if we sold the property first and then did say of substantial completion clause later, more later?
Okay.
Am I just confused?
the option to purchase action has to have a substantial completion. We cannot sell that property to him without substantial completion being completed. So if his substantial completion is 4 years, which is how it is written here, you all, however, could say that if you substantially complete, because you have to have that to purchase, in 3 years, we'll put all your rent payments to the purchase price. But we will give you to 4 years to substantially complete. If that is not done in 4 years, then the lease is null and void. So you go through the process, terminating the lease.
Happen until after substantial completion happens.
Correct. At
Okay,
3,
that's where I was confused.
Okay.
Thank
So
you very much.
you're welcome.
clear on that, council? Okay. So
Clear as
I've
mud.
heard one in favor of the amendment so far, one opposed, and some questions. Okay. Any further discussion, council?
I got a question for Sam. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, Councilman Ellison, then Meyer, then Gleason.
Yeah, I guess what Councilmember Baylor is basically talking is I agree with you on the consistency. It's certainly a lot easier to be consistent with these things. That makes it easier for everybody to explain to the public, to explain to everybody what's going on. But we're not so big or doing so many of these that we can't do them individually. But I think what we're looking at here, I'm not sure everybody understands that with this agreement, and what Councilmember Baylor is getting at is the free interest loan that basically we're given for, how many years do we want to give that? In the 10th year of this lease, however many of those lease payments, currently it's 4 years, those lease payments would go towards the purchase price in year 10, whatever the price is at year 10. If you bought it at the end of 3 years, then it would be all 3 of those years. So it's not hard to understand. It's just how many years do we want to give a free interest loan to? I understand that it's going to take a little more work to do. And I also believe that in the consistency that at least the substantial completion date ought to be the same date as because they can't buy it until it's substantially completed. So that date ought to be the same as we're counting those lease payments. Rome Hills was 7 years on a 10-year lease. The first 7 years goes to his purchase price for the library museum property. So we've done it all over the board.
Yes.
I guess I don't really have a problem with 4 years, but I think at some point in time, we once again need to have a discussion on our land sales and maybe either decide to be consistent or decide that every single one is going to be individual, which is kind of how it is now. And I don't want to misinterpret anything or have anybody misinterpret anything, but quite frankly, if substantial completion wasn't done in 4 years and they needed another year, how many of you guys are going to sit here and say the lease is null and void and we're not going to give them another year? And we're all going to give them that other year. We gave Nichols 3 or 4 or 5 extensions
20 years
to get his thing done. So anyway, I guess I want to keep it the same. If we're going to have 4 years to substantial completion, then I want to give them 4 years of payments. So I guess that's where I'd stand.
Okay.
A vote against the motion.
Councilman Meyer?
I had the same thoughts. Really.
Councilman Gleason?
So what, do we charge interest on these ever? No?
We have not in the past, no.
So we don't charge interest at all, like when my dad bought his lot down there by the Prime Select, he didn't have to pay interest on that with his,
That was long before my time. I can't answer that. I don't know. They may have been done different then. Since I've been doing this,
okay, so.
you do not pay interest when we did the performance deeds of trust, you bought the property up front. When these started, we started down the road a long time ago with the, timeframes and the lease with option to purchase, and there was never an interest rate associated with the rent payment going towards the lease. The rent payment going towards the purchase price. If in 4 years he doesn't take the option to purchase, but he has substantial completions, then it goes back to fair market value. He's going to lose the $30,000 price.
No, yeah, I get that. What I was trying to get at was if, so for 3 years he gets interest, he's just paying
He's paying a rent
rent, and he's not paying any interest. After that, if he was still to pay the $3,000 in rent, but we were charging him interest, maybe Tom would feel a little better about that. I don't know. I was just wondering, are we allowed to charge interest? Or is it worth it? Or, I don't know.
I think we're kind of wondering off the matter at hand here. There's no interest included in this, so
Okay.
it's maybe for a different discussion.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't look like there's support, so I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Objection?
Nope.
Okay. So main motion, Councilman Jones?
Yeah, so I guess I've got a question for staff through the mayor to the manager to Sam.
Okay, everybody
Hot
has to
potato.
repeat it.
Yeah. So with previous land disposals, did we do the, after your substantial completion date, it raises to fair market value?
We have done that in the past, yes. Rob Brown's was that way. I believe the Library Museum is that way. But that's as far back as I can pull out of my memory.
And is that the same for the rent or lease payment increasing based on the consumer price index? That was how those were as well?
Those, I believe, were that way too. But
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't, I mean, I would like to go read it for sure, but I feel pretty confident that that was the case, especially Rob Brown's.
Councilman Allison.
Was an option given to the purchaser to do an appraisal? With an appraiser that we'd agree to?
I can't answer that because I haven't been directly doing the email back and forth. We could ask him.
It wasn't my expense. There was no guarantee of anything whatsoever as far as whether that would matter to me. So I could pay for an appraiser and they could appraise it for half of that. I guess then I would just be screwed and sell it. Or I could pay for an appraiser and they could appraise it for double it and I'd just screw yourself for double it. That's why that didn't. Plus it's probably very expensive.
Yeah.
Too expensive.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I guess I support the motion as it is here in front of us, and I would just say if the purchaser doesn't agree with the price still, that there's always the option to go get an appraiser at his own expense. It would have to be somebody that we approve of. Can't just get me to go down and appraise it. But that would be an option. If he doesn't agree with all of this.
Okay, Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, well, I think every one of us at this table wants this business to happen. I mean, we want to support it the best we can. We also have other obligations. And, if you go out into this is a heck of a deal this city offers. And staff has put an enormous amount of time in this. I don't think everybody realizes how much staff time goes into this. And volunteer time from us to plan and zoning. If this piece of property was in the private sector, you'd have to go out and get a loan. There's loan payments, there's loan fees. If you're going to build something, then you have to get a construction loan. There's a construction loan fee. There's higher interest rates. You're able, through our process, you're able to come in here and buy a piece of property with no money down and no interest rates, no fees, practically no fees, and then get to work on it for a period of, in this case, 4 years for $250 a month, $8 a day. Think about that. $8 a day is what this is costing. I mean, that's a couple of these lattes and things that they get here. And you can start your process and get your building built. So it's a heck of a deal, and I support this deal as far as that goes. I think we've encouraged a lot of business, but you will not find this anywhere else but coming from us. And so I will support it the way it's written, and if there's other issues, I don't know how they get worked out, but.
I've heard several comments in favor of the main motion. Are there any opposed? Is there any further discussion? Councilman Meyer?
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo what Tom said. I don't know the best way to go through disposing of city land, but I think this is the system that we have right now, and the no interest payments, where the rent goes towards the purchase price for the first X amount of years, I think is a good deal. And I think sitting up here, we really have to take into account that this is city-owned property. It's not our own personal property that we're getting rid of and selling to someone who we like or want to give a leg up to or anything like that. So we have to try to be pretty consistent and really think through city property. So I think we've gotten a lot of background information on this. I think the staff has done a lot of work on it, and I think it's pretty consistent with other sales that we've done. And the price is, you know, based on the same formula we've used for other prices. So I would be comfortable with this.
Okay, Councilman Guard? So I see you have your hand up, Sheridan, but you did have a chance to make public comments. So unless council has questions, it's a council discussion. Councilman Jones?
I move we suspend the rules and invite Sharon Joyce to the table.
I'd support that.
It's fine.
Is there any objection?
Nope.
Okay, yeah, if you could come up to the mic, Sheridan, then our councilman online can hear.
I think he might have. I think he might have bumped off.
Yeah.
Sheridan Joyce, 1001 Pipe Street. So I just want to say that I'd much prefer to buy this outright than go through this process. Like I would pay more just to not have to deal with the contract and all the expenses associated with that and everything else that I have to do to buy it from the city that way. This is not a preferable situation for me. I'd rather pay interest on a loan for it than go through this contract stuff and everything else, because there's a lot of other stuff that costs me more money associated with the city's contract the way it's worded. So I just wanted to make that clear that this isn't like a super good deal in my opinion. I'd much rather buy it outright preferably from a private person, but that hasn't worked out so far. And if you had any other questions about anything else, that was just kind of the point I was making for that, because
Yeah, I'd be curious because you're basically, the price is set. You don't have to come out with a down payment. You just got to make some rent payments. And if you do that in the time allotted, it'll go. So what part of this situation that isn't appealing to a buyer?
the insurance requirements are basically I need to have so far I've negotiated down a little bit, but they still want basically a corporate insurance policy, which for a small business owner is substantial. I mean, I have a business owner's policy that would be close to what this is, but they want it basically so it's uncapped. So it's $1 million per incident. So I can just have unlimited incidents. I mean, I'm sure that gets expensive. I haven't heard back from my broker yet, but I'm going to assume it's going to be quite a bit more. And I mean, just that alone, that price difference, I'm guessing would be the interest on the loan if I was just to pay up front. I mean, I honestly, I approached the city with like a contract where I pay up front and I forfeit it if I don't do it after like 10 years or something. Like was one suggestion I made, but that was kind of shot down. No, it's not how we do it. So
council, if there's, I don't want to get into a situation where the council's negotiating with a.
I just want to know.
Yeah. Any further questions, council? Okay, I didn't hear any objection. So is there further discussion?
Is that in the contract of the insurance?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should have read through everything.
I don't know what page it's on, but it's definitely in there.
yeah, but we're reading it. So the insurance I have right now has those values. It's just capped at those values. It's not on a per incident basis because it's a business owner's policy. It's not a
Is that on
commercial
page
insurance
47
policy.
insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I already there was one insurance that I legally couldn't own that was in there before. And they finally got that dropped out after like 2 months. So
Okay.
that's kind of where that part of it's at. And then there's still, of course, they're required to pay for literally everything else associated with the law. I've already paid $1,000 in lawyers' fees and everything else for you guys.
Yeah. Okay, further discussion, council? Thank you, Sheridan. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so we don't have unfinished business on tonight's agenda. So new and miscellaneous business, pending agenda. So why don't we chip these off in order? And what I'd like to do is just go through each item and either leave it on the pending agenda or recognize that it's either outdated or it can be combined with another extremely similar item or just revert it to direction to the city manager. So the harbor expansion town hall type meeting, public input, I would recommend that we take that off the agenda right now. We do have a joint harbor and city council meeting scheduled, which I think is, Councilman Jones pointed out, it's long overdue. And before we start diving into town halls, Sam, did you have some?
Well, I mean, I believe, and I think that was put on there for when we did the bond work, that it's done. We've
Okay,
and done
that's
that.
right.
I don't think it has anything to do. I think now we need to start where we going now, and then we would do another similar to what we did with that, depending on what we end up having to do to get it funded. So I think that,
So that was advertising for the bond issue.
check, we've done that.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
thanks.
it's partially done. I think this was also when we were talking about the pie in the sky Trump money for infrastructure that we were going
Exactly.
to apply for that never came down the pike. So,
Exactly.
I think harbor expansion is a little out of our reach at this point, and so let's just focus on getting the floats rebuilt.
Okay,
So we're
And we-
taking that off.
yeah,
We're done.
we're trying to clean this up.
There's one.
And
X number 2.
so yeah, a work session with fisheries. I would say we've had a really high level of engagement, both through the Fisheries Advisory Committee, Fisheries Development Committee. Council's been passing resolutions of support. So if there's no objection to striking that one, and we can always put it back on if there's an immediate need. Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I think we could probably take this off. I do think that this is important to just have it kind of be a continual thing, because you're always getting new managers or new Board of Fish members, and we do have a Board of Fish meeting that's currently scheduled for Cordova. I think maybe we could replace this with something of inviting a couple of the board members here to say, hey, look at all of our stuff. This is what we have planned for your meeting. And they've already tried to switch it away from Cordova twice now. And with the ferry and potential changes to the Alaska Airlines service, I'm nervous they're going to try it and do it again in March and try to pull it back to Anchorage. And so I want to stay. I mean, I guess that's kind of along this lines, but keep it on everybody's radar that as council members and possibly you as the mayor, we need to be a little bit more proactive in making sure that meeting's here.
Yeah.
It's
so-
not just a done deal.
And that's a December meeting. The March meeting is in Anchorage, but the December Prince William Sound Shellfish is scheduled for Cordova. And I agree, that will almost surely try to be moved.
Yeah, they've pulled a fast one on all the rest of them, trying to get them all to Anchorage. So I would expect it. And we barely got it back in Cordova after the last time they changed it to Anchorage. So, yeah, keep that
Tina?
on your radar.
Okay.
And maybe, I don't know if staff or the mayor needs to reach out to local business owners and say, hey, this meeting's going to be December 10th to the 17th. Are you going to be open? Let's get something together to send to the Board of Fish saying these are the amount of restaurants we have open. These are the motels and the B&Bs that are going to be open. Can't wait to welcome people from out of the town that are coming for the meeting, and also the board support people,
That could be something the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chamber of Commerce has been doing a really good job of that, actually.
Yeah, and I know when we had our last meeting here in 2014, they tried to pull it because we didn't have this building done yet. And we ended up having it at the grade school, and they really liked that and enjoyed that. And at the time, I believe it was Mayor Calander. He brought 2 of the board members to town and showed them around, and that was how we were able to keep it. And I mean, you're going to bring 300, 400, 500 people here for a whole week. It's a big deal.
So that would be staff direction, and we could definitely pull it off pending agenda, but make sure it gets left as a staff directive, and we would take care of coordinating with the chamber. So definitely you can do that. Got it down.
Tina?
We're taking it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Renewal healthcare plan, and as manager mentioned, she is going out to bids and contracts on that. And let's see, was there a related item? I think that was it. So that is a staff directive in progress and a report coming back to council. Is there any objection to removing that one? And these are items that are good to have just as on a monthly managers or a meeting managers report, just a status. And council remembers that they're on the council discussion about attorney billing, staff attorney use guidelines. So there's this specific item in terms of city use. I think you heard the city manager's report now. That's all going back through the city manager now. So all use of attorney, whether it's a clerk or department heads or anybody.
And then the enterprise funds will go direct because they're paying out of their own budgets. So
Okay.
I'm not involving myself with harbor issues or any of the enterprise ones.
So just to clarify, does Harbor then, they can solicit an attorney to do legal work?
Yes, and they can pay for it themselves through their own enterprise funds. We have a staff attorney that advises us on general city legal issues. But I would assume that if what we do, if let's say the harbor has something specific around some kind of liability associated with the harbor, they can use our attorney, or they could probably go out and get their own because they're a separate entity in the sense of how they operate their budgets and everything. So.
Okay.
But
Councilman Baylor.
But is that also true with your water department and their?
Any of the enterprise funds, yeah, so water, sewer. I mean, right now we have a staff attorney that we use, and they can use at their own discretions, but they pay for it out of their own budgets. Right now, I'm only asking for department heads that operate out of our general fund to come to me and coordinate through me, because that's the budget I have control over. I don't have control over the harbor budget other than they give us a budget, you guys pass it, and we manage the finances to help them understand how they're doing on their budget, but I don't make financial decisions on their behalf.
Yeah.
Councilman Baylor, then Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you go first. I had.
Councilman Jones.
Well, I guess it might not be the right time to ask this question, but you were talking about the harbor budget and how you don't have control over it. But then who does? Because we didn't even get to see it at the Harbor Commission before it was put in the packet and voted on by council.
Well, that came from the harbor.
Not from the commission.
So maybe, and that would have been my oversight on my part. I assumed because the budget was presented to me by Tony, that it had gone through a vetting process, which I didn't confirm. So we can make sure that that happens.
Yeah, I think in the future that would be appreciated.
Sure.
Councilman Baylor.
And I can't imagine the water department having a high attorney bill by any means, but the harbor, yeah, they're enterprise fund, but they also have a board. Hopefully they're involved. So all of a sudden their board says why we spend $100,000 a year as an attorney, he can answer to them, but the water department doesn't, you know, my rates go up if they spend a lot of that money.
Right.
I don't know. It just, I don't want to get, I just thought that.
I think,
yeah.
I mean, right now I'm not asking the harbor, I'm guessing, excuse me, the enterprise funds to come to me because they are their own entities, but I'm going to assume that especially those smaller departments that aren't used to even, they're kind of hidden in the city. They're not very visible, whereas harbor is like right out there. It's a big enterprise and it has a commission. So I can certainly ask water, sewer, any of those to make sure they come to me. But again, the cost of those services will come out of their budgets.
Okay. Councilman Allison.
Nothing against our enterprise fund managers, but my opinion is that our city manager oversees all of those departments, including the enterprise funds. And, you know, even though the Harbor Commission, the harbor does have a commission, that Harbor Commission doesn't have any real authority over their department head. That comes from the city manager. And so, you know, my opinion, I guess, on the attorneys is that all should go through the city manager, but likewise, their budget needs to, I think, run through our city manager as well. Unless we want to set up a structure where we have more say over the department heads for the, I just think that all belongs with the city manager, and we don't.
I can certainly
I don't
ask
think we
them to
need
do
to
that.
leave the enterprise funds to their own designs, and whatever they want to do, they can do without any oversight, because
They're required to hold true to their budgets, but I'm not getting into the day-to-day because it's beyond my capacity. But I'm certainly happy to have ask them to come and talk to me if they're going to use our city attorney. I can just make sure that it fits within what our intentions are with the
yeah, I
city
recognize the
attorney.
day-to-day
Yeah.
things too. I don't imagine you're going to go up to the library and manage their day-to-day business either. You know, you're overseeing the whole thing. I just the discussion there was starting to worry me a little bit that we're leaving these departments,
They're being
enterprise
managed.
funds to
Yeah.
their own designs, and do what you want to do, as long as you give me a piece of paper that has a budget on it and the council doesn't have any time to look at it, so they approve it.
Yeah, well, we
that
do a
doesn't
bit
sit
more
right.
oversight than that. Absolutely, I totally
No, the purchases
understand
and
that.
everything
Yeah.
are still flowing
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
Helen and council. So regarding the attorney billing and staff attorney use guidelines, any objection to removing that? Councilman Allison?
I guess I don't have a problem removing it from the pending agenda, as long as it's on the agenda for executive session next meeting to discuss
The attorney. Mhm.
the RFPs for
Yeah,
attorneys.
exactly. Okay. So items 5 and 7 are kind of really closely related. One is council board training, invite other boards and commissions around town, city, and other. So in other words, if the city has a Foraker group or someone come in and do roles and responsibilities training for council, city council, usually kind of standard practice for a lot of our organizations, I think, to advertise in the community so that other organizations can take advantage of that. I know Science Center's done that, the co-ops have done that, city's done that. But then the First Alaskans, that's just a little bit of a legacy around the Alanka Clinic. We had a real fantastic outreach by First Alaskans. They mentioned they had a tribal governance training opportunity. We've kind of been back and forth a little bit, but in talking to Helen, I know she's looked at that as one option and kind of a lighter bite, like maybe 3 or 4 hours in an afternoon that's, manageable for council is an option, or other options. And I would suggest that just basically direct the manager, rely on the manager to bring training options to council. And sometime after the March election, shortly after the March election, and Alaska Municipal League also has some great resources, including online and then direct training. So if there's no objection to, in general, council training items 5 and 7, that could just be another manager's task to bring training options. Melina?
I do like the training options kind of direction we're going in there. Also opening it up to people who might be interested in running for boards and commissions. I think it would be useful just to open up to public in general, that they can come in and kind of learn a little bit about how that would, how that works, and might be so they can make a decision whether they want to run for a board, commission, or council. As far as the First Alaskans go, I know that it's a lot of time for council, 1.5 to 2 days for their training. But I think that we are in a community with a tribal government, and it's a federal tribal government, and it's a lot different than local governments. And it's a large population of our citizens are tribal members. So I think it would be very beneficial for council, who is representing those citizens as well, to get more of a tribal government's training. So I would like us to try to make the time and the connections with First Alaskans to get the tribal government training. More so just, I think it goes beyond healthcare or the troubles that we're having with the hospital.
Okay, so sounds like some of the options are a full tribal training, smaller tribal training, and then other alternatives. And I would guess AML would be one, and maybe Fork or another one. Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, and if this council still wants the training, and I think that's probably a question worth asking again, maybe we should ask that question first. Does everybody feel the need to have somebody come down and train? And if we do, I would be open to open it up to other people, but if you do that, I think you almost have to run it as a work session, because I've been in those situations before, and if you just get general public in, you get bogged down in how do you make a motion? You know, I mean, we're kind of above that, and most people that serve on board commission are above that, and we're looking for a high-level training, so to speak. So invite people in, but then you have to run it like you do a workshop where, okay, you listen and learn, but if you're going to end up taking questions from the audience, you'll be there all day on very minute detail, so.
Okay.
But does everybody still want training? I mean.
Council?
The tribal training?
No, just board training. Council training is what I'm asking.
Melina?
I guess I was just to say, yeah, I agree with Tom, kind of that maybe council should have its own kind of focused training and maybe a side thing that's open to the public that's more presentation in nature and they can ask questions. But I kind of agree with Tom, like the separation might be good so council can really get to the questions that we need or answers.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of the First Alaskans training. General counsel board training, though, if it's with our current attorneys, I'm not interested.
I second that.
I think I would fourth it, based on the productivity of last couple tries. Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in following up with the First Alaskans on their training.
Okay.
Me too.
And so I'm hearing yes on training in general, Councilman Baylor, so.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, so we're leaving 5 on?
nope, striking 5 and 7, and manager's gonna bring back some training options for council.
We're striking 7,
Yep,
leaving 6, or we haven't talked?
Well,
we haven't got to that yet. I jumped from 5 to 7, 6 is next, so far, 1 through 5 and 7 are struck with staff direction to the manager. Susan's gonna wonder what happened in a pleasant way. Investment firms, council's asked for those to go out to bid or for manager to report back on that. I would say update that to April, leave it on pending agenda. So
It was in my report is one of the things
Yeah.
I've already started looking at, so I can take it on and just say I will bring it back to the group, or we can leave it on. I mean, it seems as though you've been giving me direction in order to take these things off, and I've already started a process with this, and it's going to take a little bit.
yeah, I think it's hard to have an item on the agenda that doesn't have staff input anyway, so it's just a matter of having a way of capturing these, and I think that the manager's reports on these different items is a more productive way than to just stack up council's list of pending agenda and then kind of wondering what the status is and having some that are actually accomplished and they're lingering on the list. And so does that work for council? The manager has a direction to pursue RFP for.
I can support that, but I will tell you that I will be asking you every week and every month.
Give me 2 months, because I've put stuff out, so I'm on
April.
it. I
So
just
she did put an
wait.
April timeframe on that, so.
Yeah.
So do we want to leave it on there and just put April next to it?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
We're leaving 6.
Yeah, I think that's auditor is
April.
one that reports to council, kind of, I mean, the business management is, I guess, the management of investments there. City clerk's evaluation, that is coming up. What's our first regular meeting in March? 4th, and I don't have a draft agenda in my head. I don't know that we have a work session or anything real heavy lifting. When's the election?
3rd.
Third.
Tuesday.
3rd. So, whew.
And then she'll be here, I think. She's going to be gone after the.
Well, the current council's evaluations are all going to be in hand. So she'll be getting those from the current sitting council, which I think is fair and appropriate. And I think we might just ask Councilman even after the election, councilman won't be sworn in. And so this sitting council will still be at the May 4th or March 4th meeting. So let's put the
18th of,
executive session clerk's evaluation.
or what
And
day?
then
The 4th?
for the, March 4th. And then, of course, you'll have the option to request that in open session.
Might even be the current council for the second one too, because it's 14 days
Yeah,
to get the absentees, and then you have to certify.
Yeah, well,
likely.
yeah. The
Yeah.
10th.
So I don't think that March 4th meeting, I don't know, Tina, how busy is the clerk the day after the election?
Well, she's leaving town. Or no, yeah, the day after, but Ken's right, you know, then you have to wait another
Yeah.
week.
So really, there's no heavy lifting for the clerk until just about the time of the second meeting.
She's leaving the 5th of March, or 6th, I think.
Okay, then March 4th is our date.
Yep, let's
It's
do
going to
it.
be
There it is.
me.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, and just a reminder to
We're
get those to
we're
me.
still sticking with the 4th
Yeah.
Yes,
for her eval.
for her evaluation. So that's on the calendar now, so we can take it off the pending agenda. Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I would really prefer to leave the clerk's evaluation and actually either add and manager's evaluation or put the manager's evaluation and when that's due so that we don't forget that those are annual things that need to be done every year. We went a few
Okay.
years without a manager's evaluation here not too long ago.
I don't have a problem with that. So let's go ahead and just pencil in, modify that to clerk's evaluation, March 4th. And Helen, do you remember the active date of your contract?
October if it's a year, so.
Yeah, we'll say October, manager October. Melina?
Could we just add those to upcoming meeting agendas and or events where it has like our capital priorities list,
Sure.
staff
Yeah,
quarterly reports,
sure.
just so they're always on there?
Yeah. Any objection to that, council?
Oh, that's a good idea.
So Tina, we'll just move 6 down to there,
Moving 6 down to a number.
to upcoming meetings, agenda items, and or events.
It's number 8.
Number 8,
Eight.
sorry.
Yeah, number 8, sorry. And that would just become number 5 on
Okay,
upcoming meetings.
6 stays on, and then you're moving 8 down to
To upcoming meetings, agenda items, and or events.
Section 5.
C5.
Yep, C5.
And then you're
Clerk's
adding
evaluation, March 4th,
managers.
managers,
evaluation,
October.
October.
Do we want to have the managers in October by close to budget time? I don't know, just throwing it out there. I think we had her contract be in January because we didn't want it to be during.
I think that's right. I think we did renew it as of January 1st.
So do we want to do a January date for manager's evaluation, just so that we have it after the budget cycle?
Yes.
Can we just put it in October for now and maybe, or October/January? Because I just, the reason I say that, council, is there's been a history of doing the annual evaluations like after 16 months or 18 months or 20 months and then just compensating the manager as of the new date. Well, the problem is that in a course of 6 or 7 years, they can lose 2 or 3 years of retirement and other things. So I just want to, it'd be good that
Like
we,
a manager.
yeah, exactly. So we just want to fix that date. So, but we'll have time to look at that. And I did hear clearly from council, your expectation is you'd like to see a summary of this year's evaluation, the last 2 years, and the contract to review before the evaluation time. So that's my trajectory there.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of it myself, would it be helpful to have the manager's evaluation in hand, like next month, and just kind of like read through, like, all right, so these are the things I need to watch for, what are we evaluating on her? And then that kind of gives you time to sit back and kind of check things off, maybe mentally or whatever, instead of January or October, we get it, and, all right, now I got to go through all this. I'm just curious, what are we evaluating on? I mean, I know the basics, right? But we've all done evaluations, and sometimes they ask questions, you go, but just food for thought, think about it. And
Okay. Yeah.
I know I'm going to ask for a copy of it for myself, just to kind of get an idea of what we're doing.
Yeah, Tina did email out the copies of the evaluation forms.
Managers?
And the managers, we could certainly do that.
Yeah.
No, clerks.
Yeah, we emailed the clerks out, but we can email the managers out as well, just so council has it in mind. Probably
It's
something
not
for
due
new,
till October.
yeah.
Yeah.
Number 10, discussion of the city manager's spending authority. We discussed that, and then Councilman Jones, you didn't want to mention you didn't want to remove it from the.
I would like to see us maybe change it from discussion to an action item, but
I would like to see let's put it on and let's clear it up. Let's not,
Put it on the agenda, actual agenda next time.
next time, and I don't think it's going to take a long time to discuss it. Let's clear it up then.
Okay, and basically the elements are, what are the parameters on a non-budget item, on a budget item, so forth, and then, then feedback, so.
Yeah, that would be great.
And I tell you, I've gone through this with my own board and gone out to other organizations and kind of looked at, I manage a $6 million annual budget, Helen manages 12 million, so forth, and then kind of what can break for $20,000? Do you really want to wait till the next council meeting or call a special one to get a snow plow fixed, kind of thing, so. Okay, item 11.
I guess
so
I
I'm
missed
sorry,
9. What,
March 4th, so 9
yeah, I missed that.
is, I missed 9 too.
when we
So,
still land of go.
A discussion about where do land proceeds go?
We talked about 9 and 13 maybe being a discussion item, because I know there was
Yes.
some conversation. Let's see where we are and how we're disposing of land and where the monies go, and might be a good work session topic, so.
And I know a former manager brought this up, and I kind of agreed that we, I kind of question that terminology, land disposal. It's really land management. And as council mentioned, it's a public trust. Sometimes it is harder to buy public land, but it's because it's not just for sale. It's for parks, it's for city uses, it's public land, so highest and best use. So how about 9 and 13, council? We combine those into a general land management discussion. And I guess we can leave it on the pending agenda as a single item.
Sure.
Is that okay, Tina? So just combine 9 and 13 into
13, okay.
land disposal,
Management, was that?
land management and disposition of proceeds, I guess. Okay. Thank you. 9 and 13 are, so we got 6 and 9 left. And then 10,
We're going to put that on the
March,
agenda.
put it on the March 4th agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It may not be a. Do you have a thought on that, Sam? Oh, well, that's actually just manager spending authority, so we should be able to pull that out of code, so. Okay,
So number 10, we went on the next.
March 4th agenda.
Okay.
Ordinance change, Title 4, and I discussed this with Helen, and I think first we need to ask the question. I suspect that these actually need to come before council anyway. And so I think the staff direction or the manager's direction would be to bring back a CBA process. We got 2 or 3 years before this happens, but
When is the next CBA
I think
negotiation?
It's in 2.5 years.
2.5 years, yeah.
It's every 3 years, so we just approved a contract in May, I think it was.
Yeah.
February, May.
And I think council's concern is that they want to deal with this now and not.
Yeah, and I get the sense that it was brought to council and you guys approved it, but I don't think you felt like you had authority to make any changes, that you were just kind of rubber stamping something that had already been done. So let's, and as a manager who's negotiated contracts before, I would want to have the backing and cover of council in going into negotiation. So I promise you that should be a given. And let's make sure, I will review the code and make sure it's clear, but if it's a policy, if it's just practice and we just aren't understanding exactly the process, I'll make sure that it's clear and I'll bring it to you all for consideration and approval. But I personally would never go into a negotiating session thinking that I didn't have a back door that said, oops, I got to go talk to my, my council because they're the ones that are ultimately going to do this. I would want to have that backing.
Well, and I think the way you laid it out, in the first discussion, you get an overall fiscal note, so from council, so kind of what you're,
Right.
negotiating to, and you get that direction even on the front end. So council, do you want a staff report back from Helen, from the city manager on that?
I think it's going to end up being a policy change or a policy. It's not clear to me how it all works, so.
Well, I can certainly report back on what is allowed by code, what currently is, and then we can determine if a fix is needed that requires you guys' action. But I mean,
After I read Title IV, I believe that there is a code change
Issue.
required.
okay,
Okay,
Yeah, I was
So-
the same opinion.
so why don't we leave this on the pending agenda then?
okay.
Number 11 stays.
Yeah. Number 12, wow, this has come up a lot. And I know we've gotten various feedbacks from State Department of Revenue and so forth, but
Let's remove it.
yeah, we keep hitting walls with that one.
X.
Is there any objection, council?
Everything I read said that those go on against utilities for the gross receipts tax.
Yeah, there's all kinds of deep implications, and we've researched it 2 or 3 times in my memory and kind of run up against some real structural issues there.
I'd just like to take a summer off of taxation.
Year of Jubilee.
Yeah, you brought that one up.
Item 14, refuse. Frankly, the city's purchased the bear-proof containers, has been phasing them in. I think that's a done deal. If there's no objection, we can strike that one.
I think they're awesome.
Yeah, I do too. I think the Chinese year of the bear has come and gone, I hope for a while.
Well, just one personal observation is, we got a bear-proof dumpster at the bottom of our neighborhood this spring. And for the 3 weeks before that bear-proof dumpster arrived, there's 3 weeks where the bears had come out of hibernation and we had trash spread. Seemed like once or twice a week from the bears getting into the old one. They put the bear-proof one in. Didn't happen again at all the entire summer. I didn't have to go down there and pick up trash
Awesome.
because the bear spread it around. So that was awesome, and I appreciate it, and I hope that others in the community will notice those effects as well.
Yeah, I think, the state troopers, Fish and Game, city staff put a lot of effort into that, and it's.
Sounds like you better give them an earlier date to get it there, though. I mean, you live there, right? I mean,
Well, the dumpster's there year-round. They
no,
just had to,
bear-proof one.
well, they just had to switch it.
Just had to swap
That's what I
it.
mean.
So
It's
now
not
it's
like I
there
had to
now.
switch it earlier.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
It's there
all
for
the
good.
time.
Yeah, they're
Ah,
phasing them
I
in,
got you.
yeah.
I do understand that the lids are very heavy so some people are getting a Jane Fonda workout whenever they try to lift it in, that there are some plastic lids that can help with reaching up and.
Eat more salmon. Melina,
One thing, like the first part of the refuse, how we do it, I think that kind of got added because we were talking about the bear-proof containers of maybe just looking at how we collect residential garbage in this community and maybe possibly doing more transfer sites instead or neighborhood dumpsters instead of individual ones, or just looking into that. I still think would maybe be a good idea. I kind of think, I don't know what all the manpower is of going to each house and picking up garbage compared to going to one location in a neighborhood and just getting a dumpster for equipment wise, but I think that was part of that line item.
Councilman, okay. Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I would agree that talking about the paradigm of our trash collection could still be a valuable thing to discuss. From moving to where, so I moved 2 years ago. We used to have pickup. Now we've got the dumpster at the bottom of the hill. I much prefer the dumpster at the bottom of the hill, and it doesn't require that extra guy to get out of the truck and to lift those 50, 60 pound or gallon, whatever, heavy trash cans. And you have one guy driving around dumping the dumpsters. Obviously you'll still have to have some trash collection for people who can't physically open the dumpster lids or elderly or whatever, but I know Valdez does it where they just have dumpsters strategically placed. It might also help with our issue of everybody just using the harbor dumpsters or everybody using the dumpster at the bottom of my hill or the private dumpsters. You know, you've got CEC and all these businesses kind of subsidizing the whole community's trash collection because it's easy to forget to get your trash out to the curb by 6 or 7 a.m. and then the truck goes by and then you got 2 trash cans full of trash. Well, they're going to the harbor. You know, everybody's done it. I've done it. It's nice now to just, going to the bottom of my hill. And then also when I come up from my boat with a bag of trash and the harbor dumpsters are full, now I have the option to throw it in the back of my truck and just drop it off at the bottom of my hill. And I think others in the community would.
And the dumpsters are bear proof, whereas our individual garbage bins are not.
The new dumpsters are bear proof.
Council, I would suggest that managing the workflow and the trash collection's kind of the manager's bailiwick. So, I mean,
We can certainly bring it up.
if you want a report or
Yeah.
something, maybe.
I see it as a way that we could reduce possibly a staff position.
It's really complex. It is, so.
But I guess, and I'm not suggesting now, but I've kind of got some thoughts and ideas the way my garbage is picked up. So if you bought something, if we just have a casual discussion.
Okay, and maybe just reaching back a little bit too, the baler was not repaired, so we have kind of a overall situation. So would that work for that piece of it to just kind of get a report on?
Why don't we have a refuse report, an RR? Yeah, because there are some issues. We do know Copper River Watershed Project got money for a baler and from a grant, and they're finding that their initial use for the baler, which was plastic, is no longer a possibility because there's no market for the plastics. And so there's a lot of, like was mentioned, a lot of issues that are driving how we handle garbage in Cordova. And a lot of it is what's our dump capacity? What's our capacity to get stuff out of town that is technically recyclable, but nobody wants it and it's expensive to ship. So I think there's a lot of education that the refuse folks could bring to you to help you understand what their issues are and help find solutions. So we can do maybe a little work session, half an hour with the refuse guys to help us all understand it, if that was something of interest.
And I know it takes time, but I was a little disappointed when we had the DEC inspector here and all the council was invited out to the baler and the facilities and not a single one showed up. I just would have liked to have had you heard them say they inspect every landfill in the state, and this is one of the best managed ones we have. And personally, I saw it 10 years ago, and then I saw what's there now, and I'm shocked at the improvement. But yeah, that's that would be a good process. So is that all right, council, to get a kind of a refuse report collection? Yeah, Melina.
And maybe we could invite Watershed Project and other entities that are doing, they might have some thoughts on how we do recycle trash collection or something, maybe just reach out to them so that they know to come to the public or whatever.
And Sam is working closely with coordinating this group of people that's talking about this very thing. So we can definitely report back and help if you guys understand what's happening.
I would say just as a business and from a business perspective, I've really appreciated when people do abuse it, and we've, called the baler facility. They will, when they get the call and they're out doing their routes, they'll swing by and grab our dumpster so trash doesn't get spread all over by the birds and everything. So so it's hard to have control sometimes over public behavior, but it's been a good working relationship. And I've noticed a lot more public announcements in a lot of the city departments and stuff on the radio and whatnot. So reminding people that there's a cost to that, to the whole community. So the city organizational chart job descriptions.
Okay, so wait just a minute. So for the refuse, we're going to leave it on?
I think we just maybe could do a work session in a upcoming, if that's the right word, we could have a half an hour dedicated to that and invite people who are involved in that to report to you guys. Is that a work session?
Yeah, I think that's a work session.
So it's going to be a work session.
Probably in April. March is pretty full now.
Yeah, I agree. So.
Oh, Sam's got something to say.
Well, I guess I just maybe closer to, you have a big permit. Refuse has got a large permit that they gotta work with. They got a couple big things rolling. It's gonna take some time to, you guys really wanna talk about dumpsters at different locations, really talk about that at a level? I could whip you out 2 cents if you want. So I'm not sure that I can produce that by.
Okay, June.
Yeah, I think June, right?
I was just
Eric?
thinking March is a no-go, but yeah.
Got one left.
So this, I think, was a legacy because a former manager had proposed some fairly sweeping changes. I think we've heard from Helen's reports that she isn't planning wholesale changes in the structure, that positions will be brought forward on a budgetary and a position-by-position basis. So I feel like this is kind of a legacy item here if there's no objection to lifting that. Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I think it come off, but I think I spoke to it a little bit later that I still, by next budget, I anticipate the manager being able to sit here and say, yeah, I need 10 people here and 15 people here. I think for her to reorganize it and come back to tell us, I mean, because we're going to be here fighting the budget and can we drop a staff? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we're going to give you that year grace period.
Right.
So I don't have a problem taking it off, but I do expect come October, you're going to be able to tell us,
Yes.
or not October, with budget.
I would prefer just to leave it on there and put October, and just maybe city org chart presentation from manager or something like that. Or
Sure. Yeah, I think this was an organizational chart that I've not seen. Everyone's talked about it, and I know it was presented at one point by the previous city manager, so I'm just unaware, and I'm just going forward as we have been, and happy to put that as a item in the future, so.
yeah, well, by then you'll have a year under your belt, and you might be able to see where there could be certain changes made, and we'll hear your thoughts on it.
Sure.
So do we want to leave it on pending agenda and just pencil in October?
October 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for staff that are sitting listening, maybe there won't be any changes, but you'll be able to tell us that.
Yeah.
A fresh perspective.
Yeah, it's always good.
Okay, on the resolutions, ordinance, and other items, the E911, I know councilmen have talked to me about this recently, and Helen and I talked about that as well. I think that can reside there, but there's been a fair amount of back and forth on this, and there was funds collected for this. It was something that staff had brought a proposal to council. It kind of got deferred and started a discussion about addressing and standardization and the E911 system in general. And I think, if I recall right, one of the council feedbacks was, let's not be collecting more revenue until we do something with this. But in general, I think our emergency services has, repeatedly indicated that they really like to get the service in place. And I think that's council's will as well. It's a matter of coming up with a structure that we can get it done, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think I remember too, at the time that we had talked about this, there'd been some discussion at the state level of something at the state level with the E911 and not wanting to spend money locally if there was going to be something happening with the state. And so I don't think we've heard anything since then, but I just remember that
A lot has happened.
being part of the conversation, when we were talking about it.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I don't see the state or hear them discussing anything about wanting to spend more money on much of anything. But I was involved in all the committees and everything regarding the E911 prior, and there should still be about 70,000, give or take 5, in that account. And where it stalled out the last time was with the addressing. An E911 system isn't going to do us crap if you don't know what your address is. And, in order to get that next step, we have to have the addressing done. And that's what was told to us by the vendor, that was told to us by the consultant we brought in. And it got stuck at that. At one point in time, the city was going to hire somebody to come in and work on that addressing, and we can spend that $70,000 on moving forward. I'm just not in favor of reinitiating the fee until we have a plan. We're gonna do addressing, it's gonna cost us $150,000. We're gonna get started on it in June, and it's gonna be done in September. Then we can go out for bids for a 911 system, and yada, yada, yada. But we don't have a plan. The emergency services keeps coming back to us and saying we want to spend $400,000 on a 911 system, and well, do we have addressing? No, that's why we're always get stuck. So we just need a plan
Okay.
to go forward and get it done.
So we'll leave it parked there for now. And so the sole source for a federal lobbyist, that's one I'd actually kind of put on the table, and I'm just going to kind of strike that off unless there's, I think that's a good, the good context for that, I think, would be the Joint Harbor Commission and council meeting coming up on March 11th, and can decide a path forward there on what our real will is for waterfront upgrades. So if there's no objection on that. The rest are calendar items. We added the 5th on there for the clerks and managers evaluation. So at the very bottom is the process that we'd like to add items to the pending agenda. Helen and I talked to this a little bit, and we think it's more item for action. And then I think tasking which staff, I think that's really tasking the clerk or the manager, right?
Yeah, and I think if you flip this page over, there's a sheet, an overview sheet that Susan put together, a kind of a primer on the pending agenda. What is it? How do you put something on? How do you get something off? And what's not appropriate? And it was a really good information piece for me to read through, because I think there's a formal kind of direction on how we need to think about our pending agenda. So if it's task oriented, that's the clerk or manager can do. You assign it to as a task for someone on staff to handle. Anyway, just in general, I think we want to try to keep things from languishing on the list. And we just cleaned this up pretty quickly by just realizing we've done a lot of it already, or we're in process. And some of it could have been just directed to staff and not put on pending agenda in a formal way, so.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I would agree, but I like the system we have now. I think if somebody brings up something, I think then it's the time for the mayor or the manager to go, well, that's kind of task oriented, let's put that over to this pile, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's things that I'd like answers for, or some of us would like. So, yeah, it's either agenda item, but what I'm saying is to all of our members, still bring these things up. If you need information, bring them up.
Yeah.
And then somebody will make the decision. Well, that's task, I'll bring that back to you. Or, yeah, that's going to have to go on agenda.
So we have the kind of categories just like that, future agenda items, and then resolutions or items that have been referred to staff, and then upcoming meetings and agenda items or events. So, if we kind of think of it in those categories, I think it'll make it a little easier to keep the lists from getting overwhelming. So, yeah.
But don't be afraid. What I'm saying is, don't be afraid to say, I really need more information. Can we get this on the agenda? And you could say, well, that's task oriented. So.
And the first stop, too, frankly, can be stopping by the manager's office and just saying, hey, I've got this question or something. And then
sometimes things come up during the meeting, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, dang,
I'm just trying to do a good job of managing this as well. And sometimes I get to pending agenda and it's like, okay, is there anything for the pending agenda? It's almost inviting us to sit around brainstorming things to put on.
Yeah.
So I want to be a little more disciplined than that. And like you said, we don't want to leave items off the table that need to be discussed. But Councilman Jones.
So I guess one thing that isn't necessarily an agenda item, but I would like to see kind of a report, or it could be included in your next manager's report probably, is just, what is the status of the staircase grant and the Second Street grant? Just kind of an update. The application's in, we're waiting to see if we get selected, whatever. I'm just for a.
Do you want to, she could answer it and take it off pending agenda.
Perfect.
If you want her to, it's.
Well.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Second Street grant application is in. They promised there'd be results within 2 months, and we haven't heard anything yet. I do know that there was a lot of favorable comments on it, and I did have some contact from some of the DOT engineers. So it seems like a pretty good sign. The stair grant, we received, I mean, we haven't received money. DOT deals with all the money, but we've been awarded that grant. I've talked with Jake Mills, who did Adams. He's a DOT engineer. He'll be the project guy for that. And he is working with the engineer who originally worked on the stairs that were designed when the Cordova Center that I submitted. And so they're hoping, if there isn't a bunch of paperwork that gets them bogged down with NEPA and those kinds of things, which there shouldn't be, already built here, to start this. So their fiscal year 21, which would be July 1st.
July 1st.
And then I guess one more follow-up question would be, I mean, it might be more of a discussion for that harbor workshop, is that grant that you've been doing so well at getting Cordova money with. I mean, this is like the second or third project we've gotten. Would a walkway, boardwalk around the harbor that's been identified as a thing in many public meetings, would that qualify?
For the ATAP grant, like the stairs in Adams? No, I don't think it would, because they're generally safety oriented. Although there is a recreational aspect. I haven't looked at that very much because I've been, focused on streets. But that whole idea of creating parking on that side for safety may work in that, or the community STIP grant. But that probably, we won't see that again for 4 or 5 years probably.
Yeah, I was thinking mainly that side's more safety oriented for sure.
For sure, yeah.
You bring up oh, sorry, I mean, interrupt.
Oh, no, just the, if we got that boardwalk and then it gets the people off the street so the cars can park better or whatever.
I think you're bringing up a good point, because I've seen that on and off for the last 20 years, but for that Harbor Commission Council joint meeting, we might want to have a copy of our capital improvements list, just so that we're kind of coordinating with the harbor, but that's a good place to park those, kind of those long-term community capital projects, so we don't lose those. And actually, that really helps to have them on that list if a grant application comes up. Can you see? That's we're not.
And then also, I remember seeing on our capital improvement list, a sidewalk to the ferry terminal.
Yep.
That we don't have a ferry for, but I'm not sure if that would qualify for that.
For ATAP.
For that grant or not. But anyways.
Might.
Okay, well, thanks for the update and the good news. Okay, so yeah, I appreciate Susan putting this together, and so anything else for pending agenda? Good. We'll take the short list and run. Okay, we mentioned the upcoming election, and there are some elected and appointed officials lists. You saw the communications on the, I'll just tell you, council, my intentions on the PISWAC. We had the RCAC letter on page 26 regarding RCAC rep. We've had a rep for 4 cycles now. I think it's worth going out to request, solicit for interest in that. Doesn't mean that we won't reappoint that person, because there's something to be said for continuity. But I think it's kind of incumbent on the city for us to provide opportunities, and I would appreciate as a mayor to, solicit interest in that seat. And then if several names come in, make a recommendation and bring the whole list to council. If there's no objection, I'd go that route with it. Okay, audience participation. One more bite.
Sheridan Joyce, still living at 1001 Pipe Street. Okay, so I just had a couple of things kind of through this whole process, just some kind of random thoughts. So I think it'd be nice, since, especially in this case where it's a non-assessed lot, the city basically kind of can set it however they want, at whatever price they want. I just feel like it would be more fair if, in these sort of situations, that I could also present versus just the city presenting their information. because there's a lot of other assessments of land around it that would suggest that this land isn't worth that much, especially when you factor in that I'm going to be paying all the fees associated with it that aren't associated with any of those other lots. So that's one thing. I'd really like for everybody who is associated with this to have actually walked the land. I know some of you have, but if you look at the land in person, you'll see why it's not worth $2 a square foot, because there's literally a runoff creek coming through it. It's got a very small flat portion, and then it's just straight rock, straight up in the air. So, I mean, most of the lot is going to be almost impractical to even use. So, please, like, look at it, and I wish that there was a way that I could kind of give you more details on some of the land around it and how they are assessed or whatever. And because the fair market value calculations, even if you do all those calculations, it still comes out less than what I'm paying for this lot, and this lot is a piece of crap. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I'd like you guys to consider maybe a little bit more, I guess, factored in a little more when you come up with these sort of things is that once this building's built, once I'm paying property tax on it, and also I'd like to mention I'm paying property tax on it through this whole lease too, alongside the rent. But once this building's built and it gets some ridiculous assessment, and then I have to pay sales tax too, of course. So by that time, I'm paying about $5,000 a year once the building's built with sales tax and property taxes. So that's more than you're getting on the lease. If I was just at least to own it for 10 years, it's $3,000 a year. So you'd be getting, as soon as this is completed, you get basically more than you're getting just in the initial sale price. So you could give it to me and you'd still be making more money than you're getting out of the lease part of it. I mean, and then you have to factor in the other benefits to the community and other stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of one of these things where you're trying to get the most money right off the bat. But if I just throw my hands up in the air and say, well, screw it, then the city's out of that $5,000 a year indefinitely. They're out of the purchase price of the lot. Instead, they own a piece of crap lot that isn't surveyed, and I just lost $1,000 in lawyer fees. So I'm just saying, it'd be nice if it was a little bit more fair in the upfront price, because I mean, it's got to come out of somewhere. So I mean, the business is going to have less inventory or something because of the exorbitant price for what it is. If I was to buy it, just not a sure thing at this point, just because of that. If the value was there, I'd be fine with it. But it's really pushing it. So that's all I had to say.
All right, thank you. Other audience comments? Not a lot of audience there, so. Council comments, I'll start with Councilman Jones.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out, and enjoy the snow.
Councilman Meyer?
Oh, no comments.
Councilman Allison?
No comment.
Say, enjoy the water, it's making us hydro. Councilman Glazen?
Thanks, Sheridan, for showing up.
Councilman Schaefer?
It's good to be back. Also, you can vote now, Monday through Friday, until the election here in the Cordova Center, and then the election is on March 3rd. Also here at the Cordova Center. So vote and tell your friends.
Super Tuesday, thank you. Councilman Baylor?
You know, I think there's a lesson here in our land sales that plan and zoning and council can think about is we went direct sale, right? So we had nothing to compare this interest in that lot. We had nobody else saying, I'll give you $20,000, I'll give you $10,000, or absolutely nobody wanted that. So by going to direct sales, you don't have that benefit. A little bit of guidance there. What is the market for? So I think about that, and there's always time to do that. You know, so I would have rather seen it go that direction. It would help. On the investments, hopefully we'll get a couple companies in here to talk to us. But I'd like to suggest people to think about that as form like an investment committee. I know there's people in this community that have a lot of knowledge to this. I think Tommy Sheridan would be good. For some reason, Mr. Jones doesn't get reelected, I think he should sit on it. Bring some people in that are, kind of understand this stuff too, to help us along. We make the final decision, but I thought it worked well hiring the manager. And just that a thought, maybe you know some people that are up on this too, what to listen to. It wouldn't hurt. It's a big decision and it's important to the community. So, yeah, and thanks everybody for coming out.
Okay, with that, we have no executive session items, so we have
Adjourn.
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.